So I can include expansion here. Expansion before I talk about factorization. So I will just call this expansion call it expansion. That's the prior knowledge. Prior knowledge should be expansion. Will be expansion. So we can start with some of these examples. Very simple example like this. For instance, if we're given 2y, open a bracket, 3x plus y, then close the bracket to expand, what we do is we pick the 2y and multiply by each of the terms inside the bracket. So 2y, first of all, times 3x, that gives us 6xy. Also 2y times y, that will give us 2y squared. So the answer becomes 6xy plus 2y squared. If we're given this, it's also easy. So all we need is we pick what is outside the bracket and multiply with all that is inside the bracket. For instance, 5 times 8x gives us 40x. Also 5 times minus 3y gives us minus 15y. So the answer becomes 40x minus 15y. Now if we have this longer one, the same method, what is outside the bracket multiplies everything inside the bracket. So for instance, 4 times x gives us 4x. Also 4 times 3 gives us 12. That's plus 12. That's 4 times plus 3 gives us plus 12. Then we do the same thing for plus 6 times 5x gives us plus 30x. Plus 6 times plus 2 gives us plus 12. And then of course we can collect like terms. 4x plus 30x gives 34x. Plus 12 we give plus 24. So the answer becomes all that. Now look at this case. If we have 5 multiplying all this, so 5 times 3x gives 15x. 5 times minus 1 gives minus 5. Also minus 3 times 5x will gives minus 15x. Minus 3 times minus 1 will give plus 3. Remember, whatever is outside the bracket will multiply everything inside the bracket, taking note of the signs. That's why this one is minus 3 times 5x, minus 15x. Also minus 3 times minus 1, that gives plus 3. So, we've written out everything. 15x can cancel out 15x, so we're left with minus 5 and plus 3. And of course, minus 5 and plus 3 will give us minus 2, which is the answer. Now that's simple expansion. We can have expansion in this form. For instance, you have open a bracket 3x plus 4, then close the bracket. Then open a bracket again, x plus 2, close the bracket like this. It's the same method, just slightly different. So what we do is we pick 3x and multiply with this, and also multiply with this. Okay, let me reduce this so that I can write it out properly. We pick 3x, multiply with this, and also multiply it with this. When we are done, we pick plus 4, multiply with this, and also multiply it with this. So the first one I wrote in blue, 3x times x gives us 3x squared. 3x times plus 2 gives us plus 6x. And we're done with the 3x. Then we go to plus 4. Plus 4 times x will give us plus 4x. Also plus 4 times plus 2 will give us plus 8. We collect like terms. 6x plus 6x and plus 4x will give us plus 10x. And then we have 3x squared plus 10x after adding these two plus 10x, then plus 8. See, this one is the same method. We x times 3x, you write the answer. Then x times 3x, you write the answer. Also x times plus 5y, you write the answer. After that you come to plus 6y times 3x, you write the answer. Also plus 6y times plus 5y, you write the answer. The same way we did this is the way we're going to do all of this, and you get your answer. That is 4 expansion. It can even be longer, like when you have a case of some longer ones like this. You have open a bracket, x minus 1, close the bracket, then open the bracket again, 4x minus 1, close the bracket, then open the bracket again, x plus 8, close the bracket. So what we do is we multiply out these first. And in multiplying out these, you just do this times this, then this times this. When you are done, you also do the other one, this times this, then this times this. So that's a simple method. For instance, we're going to have x times plus 4x. We're working with the green one first. X times plus 4x will give us 4x squared. X times minus 1 will give us minus x. In fact, what I will do to make it easier is to write the ones in green. Or let me leave it the way it is so that it's obvious. X times 4x will give us 4x squared. X times minus 1 will give us minus x. We're done with the one in green. We'll go to the one in red. Minus 1 times 4x will give us minus 4x. Also minus 1 times minus 1 will give us plus 1. We can collect these two, the like terms. Minus x minus 4x gives us minus 5x. So everything will now be 4x squared, which is 4x squared, minus 5x, which is for the two combined, and then plus 1, which is this. We have worked out, simplified this. And then we now continue with the one in the other bracket. So we've simplified these first two brackets. We've got this one I wrote in green. So we'll continue with this other bracket. And it's very easy. Like I said, pick one, multiply with everything here. Pick the other, multiply with everything here. Pick the last, multiply with everything here. So we can start with 4x squared. 4x squared times x will give us 4x cubed. Also 4x squared times plus 8 will give us plus 32x squared. Also, we are done with 4x, so we come to minus 5x. Minus 5x times x will give us minus 5x squared. Also minus 5x times plus 8 will give us minus 40x. We're done with minus 5x, we come to plus 1. Plus 1 times x will give us plus x. Also plus 1 times 8 plus 8. Plus 1 times plus 8 will give us plus 8. So we have all of them laid out. All we can do is we collect like terms. These two all have terms in x squared, so we can collect them. So we have 32x squared minus 5x squared, that will give us plus 27x squared. Plus 32x squared minus 5x squared will give us plus 27x squared. We can also collect these terms in x. Minus 40x plus x will give us minus 39x. So we now have 4x cubed, which is this. These two we have added together. we got plus 27x squared. Also these two we have simplified, we got minus 39x. It looks like this is the last stage of the simplification. 4x cubed plus 27x squared minus 39x plus 8. So that's for expansion. I think we can continue with factorization. Remember, I had to introduce the expansion as a prior knowledge of the work we are expected to do. Expansion as a prior knowledge we need to have, because the reason is factorization is basically opposite of expansion. When you expand, you lay it out. When you factorize, it becomes something that you can expand, as we're going to see. Let's start with this question. A says factorize. We are factorizing the following. Factorize the following. Okay, so A says 6r plus 14. Of course, you look for any number that can divide this and also divide this. In fact, the highest common factor of 6r and 14. The highest common factor of 6r and 14 will be 2. 2 can divide 6r and it can also divide 14. So 6r divided by 2 gives us, that highest common factor will bring it out. So 2 can divide 6r and it can also divide 14. 6r divided by 2 gives us 3r. Also 14 divided by 2 gives us 7. So the basic thing is basically just look for the highest common factor of the terms, like 6r and 14. The highest common factor is 2. So you divide each of them by 2. 6r divided by 2 gives 3r. 14 divided by 2 gives 7. So those are the things we're going to write here. 3r, which is what we got by dividing with 2. And then 7, which is what we got by dividing 14 by 2. Okay. Let me zoom it out a bit so I can reveal all. So this is what we have. 6r divided by 2 gives 3r. That's what we have here, 3r. 14 divided by 2 gives 7. That's what we have here. Okay, so if we have x squared plus 2x, we look for the highest common factor of the 2. The highest common factor is x, because x squared divided by x will give us x, which is x here. 2x divided by x will give us 2, which is what we have here. That highest common factor will be written outside. So like I said, factorization is the opposite of expansion, because when you expand this, you will get back what you had before. Because 2 times 3r will give you 6r if you were to work backwards. Also 2 times 7 will give you 14. If you also do the same thing here, x times x will give you x squared. Also x times plus 2 will give you plus 2x. So you will get back to where you started from. So I want us to move this thing further. Assuming you have 2z minus 8z cubed. The highest common factor is 2z. 2z can divide both of them. And 2z divided by 2z will give us 1. So you write 1 here after you have written the highest common factor outside. 8 minus 8z cubed divided by 2z, that same highest common factor will give us 4z squared. If you look at it, this is where we worked it out. Z squared, because 8z cubed means 8 times z times z times z. That's 8z cubed. 8z cubed means 8 times z times z times z. Divided by 2z. 2 we cancel out 8, 4 will be left. Z will cancel out z, so you now have 2 z's together with the 4. That's why it is 4z squared. Now look at this. 12xy squared minus 16x cubed. The highest common factor what can divide 12xy squared and 16x cubed y will be 4 can divide 12 and can divide 16. That's the highest common number. Now the first one has x. The highest power of x is 1 here. The highest power of y is 2 here. Here the highest power of x is 3. The highest power of y is 1. So the highest common factor will be the lowest power of each letter. For instance, among these two, the lowest power is x raised to the power 1. I mean for x is x raised to the power 1. So we bring out x raised to the power 1. I mean the lowest power for between the two of them, common between the two of them. This one has x raised to the power 1 as the lowest. So, but this one has x raised to the power 3. So we bring out x raised to the power 1. That's x. Then we come to y. This one has y raised to the power 2. This one has y. So the lowest power is y. So we also bring out y. Remember we brought out 4 initially because 4 can divide 12 and divide 16. So the highest common factor will be 4xy. You know. So we can divide each one by 4xy. 12xy squared divided by 4xy, 3y will be left. That's why we have 3y here. Because x will cancel out x. 1y will cancel out 1y. Only 1y will be left. 4 will cancel out 12, leaving 3. So it's 3y. Also, 16x cubed divided by 4xy. See, this is what we're going to have. So you have 16x cubed y, 16x cubed y divided by 4xy, which is the highest common factor. Y will cancel out y, 1x will cancel out 1x here, and x squared will be left. That's x raised to the power 2 will be left. So the answer will be 4x squared. That's what we have here. Now if you look at this, what's the highest common factor? This has x, this has x, this has x. So we look for the lowest power of x and bring it out. This has y, this one does not have y, this has y, so we can't bring out y. So it looks like it's only x that is common because 3, this has 3, 3 can divide, 6 can divide 3, but there's no number here. So it's only x. So when you bring out x, you'll be left with 3y squared. Then this one will be left with 6x squared. This one will be left with y. Because x will cancel out x. We'll be left with y. 1x will cancel out x cubed. You'll be left with x squared together with the 6. X will cancel out x. In this one, you'll be left with y squared. So 3y squared. And then the x outside the bracket. Okay, so we continue with more examples on factorization. Now we have 32x cubed minus 24x squared y squared. The highest common factor for the number 32 and 24 is 8. So we write 8. We have 8. Let me use a different color. I can use a blue pen. So we have 8. You know, and then we look at the letters. The first one has, this first one has for x, the first one is x raised to the power 3. For the second term, you have x raised to the power 2. The lowest power of x is x raised to the power 2, so we write out x raised to the power 2. Remember, you pick out the lowest power of the letters. When we come to y, the first term has y raised to power 1, even though it's not written, just y. The second term has y raised to power 2, even though it is, y raised to power 2. The lowest is y raised to power 1, so we're going to use y raised to power 1, which is simply y. And then we open a bracket. So this is the highest common factor for these two terms, this and this. Remember, you first of all check out the numbers. The highest common factor for the number 32 and 24, the numbers 32 and 24 is 8. Then you look at the letters. For x, you have x cubed for the first term, x squared for the second term. The lowest power is x squared, or x raised to power 2, so you write x raised to power 2. That's for x. Now for y, the first term has y, or y raised to power 1, even though the 1 is not shown. The second term has y raised to power 2. So the lowest power is y raised to power 1, or y, so you write out y. This is the highest common factor. Then you open a bracket, and then you begin to divide. Each this divided by the highest common factor. That's what we do. So let's set out to carry that out. So our workings will be here. We do 32x cubed y divided by 8x squared y. Of course, y will cancel out y. 8 goes, 32 goes, and then you're going to have 4 left. Then for x squared cancels out x cubed, you'll be left with only 1x. So we have 4x. All right. So we have 4x, that's 4x. All right, let's look at the other term, which of course is 24x squared y squared divided by this highest common factor 8x squared y. So I'm going to write that out again. 24x squared y squared divided by the highest common factor, which we wrote out in bracket 8x squared y. Alright, so we see what we cross out. Y crosses out y squared, y crosses out y squared, and we have only one y left. X squared crosses out x squared, nothing is left. 8 crosses out 24, we have 3 left, so that would be 3y. So we're going to have 3y here, that will be minus 3y, so which is the answer. Alright, so we can clean out our workings to create space for other workings. So that's how to factorize expressions like that. Now let's look at further principles we apply in factorization. What we call difference of two squares. If you have a particular square minus another square, there's a principle we use, we call difference of two squares. What you simply do is pick out one of them. So we start with x, add it to the other one without the square. Now close a bracket, open a bracket again, the first one again, x, subtract it from the second one, close the bracket. That's all. I can illustrate it again with a different letter. Let me say, assuming we have a squared minus b squared will be equal to, pick out the first letter, in fact open two brackets. You can start by opening two brackets. Pick out the first letter without the square, so a, add it to the second one without the square. Also the first subtract from the second, or first minus the second. That's the rule, and we call that difference of two squares. Both of the terms must be in squares for that rule to apply. For instance, in this particular example, x is in squared, 16 is a square number. So we can rewrite it so that both of them will be something squared minus something squared. For example, you can have this as x squared minus 4 squared. 4 squared is taking the place of 16 because both terms must be in squares. One squared minus the other squared. One particular term squared minus the other term squared. So we apply the same rule. You can start by opening your two brackets. It's very easy. Pick out the first one, x, add to the second one. Pick out the first one again, minus the second one. That's all. Now when we have this one, this particular one, both of them must be expressed in squares. We already have 9x squared, but all must be expressed in squared. So 9 should be expressed in square. So it's going to be written like this. For now, we're going to write it as 3 squared x squared, or 3x all squared, because 3 squared gives 9. Now for 25, it's going to be rewritten as 5 squared. So both of them must be in square. 9 is the same thing as 3 squared. We already have x squared, so it becomes 3, open the bracket, 3x all squared, then minus 5 squared. So we apply the rule. Once you have both of them in squares, you can now apply the rule. So you can open a bracket, close the bracket, open the bracket again, close the bracket, pick the first one, 3x, subtract from the second one, that's minus the second one, 5. The first one again, or you can even start with plus first. So I mean, you can add first before you subtract, or you can subtract and then you add. It's the same thing. You might decide to write this one before this one, so it will give you the same thing. So we go on. We have added, that's 3x plus 5. We subtract 3x minus 5, which is the answer. So we look at this final one, where we have, let's pick a different kind of pen. All right. So it's 20x squared minus 45. Both of them must be written in squares. And this 20 is not a perfect square. This 20 is not a perfect square, and 45 also is not a perfect square. So we need to first of all factorize. And we can divide both terms by 5 so that we can reduce each term to a perfect square. Now this is what I mean. If we divide both terms by 5, 20 divided by 5 will give us 4, so you have 4x squared here. Then minus 45 divided by 5 will give us 9. So we now have 5, then open a bracket, 4x squared minus 9. So we start by factorizing to reduce both of them to perfect squares. So 4x squared can be written as a perfect square. So we now have 5. 4 itself is 2 raised to the power 2, so it becomes 2x all squared. That is for 4x squared, because 2 squared gives 4. The minus, for 9 we have 3 squared before we close our bracket. So eventually we have expressed both of them in squares. This in square, this also in square. So we can now pick, starting with, don't forget the 5 that is already outside. So 5, open the bracket, and then close the bracket, open the bracket again, close the bracket, add the two numbers without square, or add the two terms without square and subtract the two terms without square. So we have 2x plus 3. You can start with adding and then you write subtraction, or you can subtract and then you add. Anyone can be written first. So 2x plus 3 and then 2x minus 3. You must remember to include the 5 that you brought out initially when you were factorizing to reduce all of them to perfect squares. Okay, if we now have like 4 terms, you can pair them and factorize each pair or each group, as the case may be. For instance, 6x and minus 8x can be factorized first. Then we factorize 15y squared minus 20y. Let's start. We can factorize 6xy minus 8x. The common factor is what can divide 6 and 8 and divide xy and x will be, I think it is 2x. And 2x into that will give us 3y minus 4. That's for the first pair. Then we do the second pair. I'm going to use a different color to make it better. So we do the second pair, which is plus 15y squared minus 20y. The common factor of 15 and 20 is 5, I think. Then of course the number, whatever we have here is what we're going to start with. The sign we have here, and it's plus. So we start by writing plus 4, the 5, and then we open a bracket. We have plus 5, 15y squared divided by plus 5 would be 3y. Remember the way we always do it. 15 divided by 5 is 3. What did I even bring out? Okay, I think it should be 5y. I should have brought out 5y. 15y squared divided by 5y will be 3y. The highest common factor is actually 5y, not just 5y. So 15y squared divided by 5y will give us 3y. Then we do the other one, minus 20y divided by 5y will give us 4. Good. So remember what we did was pair them. The first pair we factorize. The first pair is 6x minus 8. 6x. The first pair is 6xy minus 8x. We factorize. The second pair is 15y squared minus 20y. We've also factorized. Now, once you have the brackets, check if the brackets are the same. The first bracket in green is 3y minus 4. The second bracket in red is 3y minus 4. They are the same, so they are common. You just write it out. So we're going to write out 3y minus 4 in a bracket. So what we just need to do is pick out the factors that we wrote outside the bracket, starting with the first one, 2x. So we also write, open another bracket, 2x, and then the second factor we wrote outside the bracket, which is 5y, with its sign, that is plus 5y. So that will give us plus 5y. We close the bracket. That's the answer. So to recap, after you've discovered that you have the same bracket in the first factorization by pairing, if the bracket is the same, that is common bracket, write out that bracket and close in the bracket. And then pick out the factors that you wrote outside the bracket, like the first one is 2x, you write the 2x. The second one is plus 5y, you write the plus 5y, and also put them in bracket. So this will be the answer. Okay, we go to this second one. We have 5x plus 10y plus 5x plus 10 minus x minus 2. So we also factorize pair by pair, the first pair and the second pair. So let's start with the first pair. I'm also going to use, I will use what color of marker? I can use black for the first one. What can divide 5x and 10? I think 5 is common, so we bring out 5. Then this will be x minus plus 2. In other words, 5x divided by 5 will give us 10. What I mean is 5x divided by 5 will give us 5x divided by 5 will give us x. Then 10 divided by 5 will give us plus 2. That's plus 10 divided by 5 will give us plus 2 in a bracket. That's the first pair. We go to the second pair. The second pair, I will use a red pen for it. Now, if you notice, there's nothing common between these two. That's minus x and minus 2. If there's nothing common, just bring out 1. 1 is the common factor of any numbers. Once they don't have any common factor, you can write 1 as a common factor for both of them or all of them, as the case may be. So 1 is a common factor for these last two, minus x and minus 2, because they don't have anything in common or any factor other than 1 that we can bring out. So remember the sign. That's before x, the sign is minus, so we are going to start with that minus. So we write minus, and then we write the 1, which is the common factor for both of them since they don't have a common factor, and then we open a bracket. Now, minus x divided by minus 1 will give us x. So what I said is minus x divided by minus 1 will give us x. Then I come again, minus 2 divided by minus 1 will give us plus 1. Plus 2, sorry. Minus 2 divided by minus 1 will give us plus 2. Will give us plus 2. In fact, you will notice that once minus is opening the bracket, the sign here will change. If it will change to its opposite sign. If it was like it is minus here, it changed to plus. If it was plus, it would have changed to minus. That only happens if minus is what is opening the bracket, or minus is what we are going to use to close the bracket. Then you could actually get that by simple division, applying the proper rule in directed numbers, which is one of the lessons we have covered earlier. In this case, minus x divided by minus 1 gives plus x, which is simply x. Also, minus 2 divided by minus 1 will give us plus x. And if you notice, the brackets are common. The first one is x plus 2. The second one is also x plus 2. And our rule is to write out the common brackets. You open a bracket and write out the common bracket x minus 2. Then you pick out the factors that were written outside the bracket. The first factor is 5. So you also start the bracket, write the 5, and then the other factor. The other factor is minus 1. So we write it minus 1. And then you close the bracket. Let me write it properly. That's the answer. Now when we come to this one in this particular category, if you check, the first pair has nothing in common. That's mt minus n, nothing, no common factor. Also minus m plus nt, no common factor. So we can rearrange and see if we can put the pairs side by side in a way that we can find a common factor. For instance, this particular mt minus n, we can rearrange it to have mt minus m, then minus n plus nt. In this case, we can consider mt and minus m as a pair, as one pair, then minus n and plus nt as the other pair. Then we can now factorize. So remember, if there's nothing in common, you can rearrange and see if you can find a factor that is common. So for mt minus n minus m plus nt, we discover that the first pair, the first two terms, mt minus n, has nothing in common. Even the last two terms, m minus m plus nt, has nothing in common. So but we rearranged. After rearranging, we can actually see that mt minus m has m in common. All right, so we can factorize the first pair. I'm going to use a different color of marker. I will start with blue. M can come out, and then we have t minus 1. So what I did was simply mt divided by m, which is a factor we brought out, t will be left. Also minus m divided by m minus 1 will be left. Anything dividing itself will give you 1. All right, now if you look at this second one, what is common, I mean the last two, what is common is n. There's n here, there's n here, and there's a minus here, so we bring out a minus. So we start with, I can use a different color marker. Let me use black this time around. So I will start with minus n, and then open a bracket. Minus n divided by minus n will give us 1. So we have 1 here. Then plus nt divided by minus n will give us minus t. Okay, it looks like this would have been better rearranged, but let me see what I've written. What do I have here? Minus t. So it means we should have rearranged it better, because the two terms inside the bracket are not the same. This one is t minus 1, but this one is 1 minus t. So I think it should have been rearranged in a different way. I think we could have mt plus nt and minus m minus n. It's better to have it like that. See, what I'm saying is these two terms, these two brackets are not the same. This is t minus 1, while this one is 1 minus t. So they are not the same. There's something I could actually do to make it the same, but so that it doesn't get confusing, I would rather rearrange it differently. Let me rearrange it differently. Sometimes you need to be careful in the way you rearrange it. So I will rearrange it differently. So instead of writing mt minus m minus n plus nt, it's better to write mt and then I bring plus nt. So I will write mt, then plus, let me still use my red pen, mt plus nt, that's putting mt and plus nt together. Then I can now have my minus m. I can even write minus m minus n, so that it will look well arranged. M started first before n, so I will write m first before n. So it's rearranged now. mt plus nt, which is mt plus nt, then minus m, this minus m, and minus n, minus n. Their signs are still retained. I just rearranged. What I did was just to rearrange them. So the idea is rearrange. Rearrange to obtain this. Alright, so I can now go ahead and factorize. In mt and plus nt, I think t is the common factor for the first two, which will form our first pair. Mt divided by t will give us m. Then plus nt divided by t will give us plus n. So this is the first. Then we come to the second. I will use a blue pen for it. Remember there's a minus here, so I bring out a minus. Now, like I said, when there's nothing that is common, there's nothing that is there's no common factor between m and n. apart except 1. When there's no common factor, you use 1 as a common factor. So m and n has no common factor except 1. So I'm going to use 1 as a common factor. So I have 1 here. I open a bracket and then m. Now remember why it is m is because minus m divided by minus 1 will give you just m. Also, minus n divided by minus 1 will give you plus n. If you notice, just like I pointed out earlier, once there's a minus closing the bracket or opening the bracket, the sign will change. I mean, the signs of the letters or terms will change. You see, notice that minus m changed to plus m, also minus n also changed to plus n. That only happens if it's minus that is opening a bracket or closing the bracket. We saw that here. This sign minus m, minus 2 changed to plus 2, minus x also changed to plus x. But if it is a plus, it doesn't affect anything. So in this case, we can see that we have a common bracket, m plus n and m plus n are the same. So what we just do is we pick out that common bracket, m plus n. And then we pick out the factors that we wrote out earlier, t and minus 1. Okay, so that's the answer. Another case we look at is factorization of quadratic functions with 3 terms. For instance, if you have x squared plus x minus 12, there are only 3 terms, x squared plus x minus 12. Another example is x squared minus 13x plus 36, only 3 terms. Now the first thing we need to do is change these 3 terms to 4 terms. Once we have changed them to 4 terms, we can now factorize it in pairs. Change these 3 terms to 4 terms. However, I can introduce a very simple way of doing it without having to go through that method. But that can only apply if the coefficient of x squared is 1. In this case, the coefficient of x squared is 1, so we can use this method. The coefficient of x squared here is also 1, so we can use this same method I'm going to introduce now. Now, when the coefficient of x squared is bigger than 1, like 2 or 3 or 4, we're going to use a different method. So this one, the coefficient of x squared is 1. We can easily use a very simple method. However, this simple method is basically looking for the factor, 2 factors of the constant. In example A, that is x squared plus x minus 12. The constant is minus 12. Constant is the one that doesn't have any letter. The constant is minus 12. The constant is minus 12. So we're going to look for 2 factors of 12 such that the product of those 2 factors will give us this constant minus 12, and the sum will give us the middle term. So the product should give us the last term, the sum should give us the middle term. For the 3 terms, you have the first term, the middle term, which is the second term, and the last term. The last term is the constant. So you look for the factors of this constant. Remember, that is only if you have 1 as the coefficient of x squared that you can use this method. So look for the constant, the factors of this constant. The factors of 12 are, what are the factors of 12? The factors of 12 are, of 12, you have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12 itself are the factors of 12. Now, these factors, two of these factors of 12, we're going to use two of them such that when you multiply one by the other, you will get minus 12. When you add one to the other, you get plus x or plus 1. Remember, you have plus 1 here. So what two factors can satisfy that condition? Remember the factors we wrote: 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. What two factors can satisfy the condition? If you notice, it looks like it is only 3 and 4 that can do that, but we need to know the signs that 3 and 4 we have. Remember the two factors, one times the other must give us minus 12. So product must be minus 12, while one plus the other, for those two factors we chose, must give us the middle coefficient, which is plus 1. There's a plus 1 here. I could have written plus 1 here. Just know that there's a plus 1 even though it's not written. If you have plus x, it means plus 1. So the sum is plus 1. The product is minus 12. So what two factors will satisfy the condition? So it looks like the factors that can satisfy those conditions are minus 3 and plus 4. So it will be minus 3 and plus 4. Minus 3. This is too bold. Let me use a different one. Minus 3 and plus 4 will satisfy the condition, because minus 3 times plus 4 will give us minus 12, which is the constant, which is the product. Also, minus 3 plus 4 will give us plus 1. So product minus 12, sum plus 1. That satisfies the condition. Don't forget that the number you choose must satisfy these conditions. Sum must be the middle one. Product must be the constant. So it is minus 3 and plus 4. So we're going to just open a bracket, because this one is easy. You just open a bracket, as we have done. Open a bracket, start with x, then write the first constant, minus 3, x minus 3. Then open another bracket again, start with x, write the second factor. So I said open a bracket, write x, then write the first factor, which is minus 3. So x minus 3, close the bracket, open a bracket again, start with x, write the second factor, which is plus 4. Close the bracket. You have the answer. So we use this second example to explain it further. Example B. We have x squared minus 3x plus 36. Because the coefficient of x squared here is 1, we can go ahead and use this same method. Coefficient of x squared here is 1. So what we simply do is, we find the factors of 36. In this case, the factors of 36, we can even list them. Factors of 36. Remember, this was factors of 12 we used here. In this one, we're going to write the factors of 36. Factors of 36 are, that will be a lot. 1, 2, 3, I think 4, I think 6, I think 9, I think 12, I think 18, and then 36 itself. These are the factors of 36. So from these factors, we're going to look for 2 of them such that 1 times the other will give us plus 36. Remember, the sign that the 36 has must be correct. Then also 1 plus the other must give us the middle one, the coefficient of the middle one, which is minus 13. So product, in this case, let me write what we're looking for. Product must be plus 36, and sum must be minus 13. Yes, product must be plus 36 and sum must be minus 13. So what 2 factors here will satisfy those 2 conditions? 1 times the other will give plus 36. 1 plus the other will give minus 13. Obviously, it's 4 and 9, and with their correct signs. So it will be minus 4 and minus 9. Minus 4 and minus 9. Alright, so what will satisfy the condition will be minus 4 and minus 9. It looks like this is 2 boards, so I will reduce it. Use a different color. So we have minus 4 and minus 9 are the 2 factors. Let's check. Minus 4 times minus 9 will give us plus 36. So that's correct. So let me circle this. These are the 2 factors. These are the 2 factors. Minus 4 times minus 9 will give us plus 36. Also, minus 4 plus minus 9 will give us minus 13. So once you have identified the 2 factors, you just start. Your work is almost done. You open a bracket, you write x, write the first factor, x minus, that's minus 4, close the bracket, open another bracket, write the second factor. I'll start with x and write the second factor, which is minus 9. Minus 9. So you do this when the coefficient of x squared is 1. When the coefficient of x squared is 1. Okay. Let's look at one more example on this. If you have, let me write it here. If you have, let's call it C. If you have y squared minus y, then minus 20. The constant is 20. So we're going to look for the factors of 20. Factors of 20 are, so let's start with factors of 20. Let me write it with a different pen. Factors of 20. Factors of 20 will be will be 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20 itself. These are the factors of 20. So we need to look for two of the factors such that the product will be minus 20, the sum will be minus 1. Remember, there's a minus 1 here. By the way, this was y squared. Y squared minus y minus 20. There's a minus 1 here. I can just use a red pen to indicate it so that to be clear, there's a minus 1 in this place, even though it wasn't shown initially. The two factors, product must be minus 20. Sum must be minus 1, because the product will give you the constant. The sum will give you the coefficient of the middle term. So what two numbers here such that the product is minus 20 and the sum is minus 1. It looks like 4 and 5 will do the work. So what will be the signs on each of them? Since we have a minus 1 here, the bigger one will carry a minus. So we have plus 4 and minus 5. These are the factors that will do the work. Plus 4 and minus 5. So like I said, once you have the factors, especially if the coefficient of y squared is 1, you don't need to do more work. You just open your bracket, open another bracket, write the y, pick the first factor. The first factor is plus 4. So that's y plus 4. Then you write your y again. The second factor is minus 5. So we write y minus 5. That's the answer. About another example like this, x squared minus 7x minus 18. Let's call it D. This is example D. Okay, the constant is minus 18. So we're going to look for the factors of minus 18. Remember, the coefficient of x squared is 1, so you can use this method. So we're going to start with factors of 18. And the factors of 18 are 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18 itself. So what are the two factors such that 1 times the other will give you minus 18? 1 plus the other will give you minus 7. It looks like the two factors will be 9 and 2. 9 and 2. 2 times 9 will give you 18. So what signs will they have? Since this one has a minus, the bigger one will have a minus. Alright. The bigger one is 9, so it will have a minus. If this had a plus, the bigger one will have a plus. Okay, if the middle one had a plus, the bigger one will have a plus too. Alright, so we have found the factors. The factors are 2 and minus 9. So we simply open a bracket and open another bracket. We start with x and write the first factor. The first factor is 2, that's plus 2. So it becomes x plus 2. We write x again. X again, the second factor is minus 9. So we write minus 9. So this is the answer. Okay, let's look at this particular case where you may have a different approach to it. Okay, let's see this particular case where the coefficient of x squared is not 1. Once it is bigger than 1, if it is 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, it's going to be slightly different, you know. Now, the first thing you need to do, which of course I was trying to write here, is you will multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. So you multiply it by the constant. Here the coefficient of x squared is 2. The constant is 14. So we're going to first of all multiply 2 by 14. So 2 times 14, that's the first thing to do. It's slightly different from the previous ones we did. The previous ones were easier because the coefficient of x squared for those ones was 1, just 1. An example is, one of the examples we worked on was x squared, or I think we wrote it as y squared minus y minus 20. You know, here the coefficient of y squared is 1, even though the 1 is not written, so it's different. I think we worked on another example, but in all the other examples, the previous work we did, the coefficient of y squared or x squared was 1. So we used a slightly different and easier method. But this particular case, where the coefficient of x squared is more than 1, like 2 or 3, and so on, we will do something first. You will have to first of all multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. So 2 times 14. 2 is the coefficient of x squared, 14 is the constant. 2 times 14 is what we do first of all. So we're going to do 2 times 14. 2 times 14 will give us 28. And by the way, you need to take note of the signs. This is 2 times minus 14. So it's actually 2 times minus 14. So the signs are important. 2 times minus 14, that will give us minus 28. So in this case, the product is actually 28 we're going to work with. That's minus 28. While the sum is the middle term as usual. You're not going to use 14, but minus 28, because the product is gotten by multiplying the coefficient of x squared by the constant. 2 times minus 14 gives us minus 28, so the product is minus 28. The sum still remains the same. The sum is the middle term, the coefficient of the middle term. Alright, so factors of 28, as we normally do, we normally write down the factors of 28. Factors of 28 are, let me write factors of 28. Factors of 28 are 1, 2, 4, is 6 a factor? 12, 24, no. Is 7 is a factor? Is 8 a factor? It's not a factor. So is 9 a factor? 9 is not a factor. We have 14 and 28 itself. These are the factors of 28. So these factors, of course, we're going to pick any two of the factors such that one times the other will give us minus 28. Product must be minus 28. Then 1 plus the other will give us minus 3, which is the middle term. Sum must give us middle term. Product must give us what we got after we multiplied the coefficient of x squared with the constant. That's what we need to do first. So first, in this case, is you multiply. That's the first thing that must be done first. You have to do this first before you continue. All right, so what are the two factors such that their product will be minus 28 and their sum will be minus 3? These signs are important. That's why we are still writing minus 28 and their sum will be minus 3. So what are the two factors? It looks like what can do the work will be 4 and 7. 4 and 7, but we need to check out the signs. So since the middle number has a minus, the bigger one will have a minus, the smaller one will have a plus. So what will satisfy it will be plus 4 and minus 7. This will be the factors that will satisfy it. Plus 4 and minus 7. So I can call this the first step. First step. First step. Step number 1. Let's call it step 1. Step 1 is multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. Multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. Then find the suitable factors. You can call that step 2, which will multiply each other, as their product will be minus 28 and their sum will be the middle term, which is minus 3, and we have found them to be 4 and minus 7. Now the next step will be to replace these two factors, or rather to replace the middle term with these two factors. The middle term is minus 3x. The middle term is minus 3x. So we're going to replace this middle term with these two factors we have found. The two factors we found are minus 4 and minus 7. So this middle term will be replaced with 4 and minus 7. So instead of minus 3x, we're going to write minus 4x, or rather plus 4x and minus 7x, which of course are these two factors we found. So replace the middle term with these two factors. That's what we're going to do. So after we've done that, we just continue with the method we've always used. Pair them and factorize. So this middle term minus 3x, we have replaced it with the factors we found, 4 and minus 7. Remember, you must return the x's. So plus 4x and minus 7x. I've taken over this middle term. 2x squared will still be retained. Minus 4 will still be retained. The only thing we needed to replace was the middle term, replaced with the two factors we found, which are plus 4 and minus 7. So it becomes, instead of minus 3x, we now have plus 4x minus 7x. So we factorize each pair as usual. The first pair, we factorize it. The common factor is 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x will give us x. Plus 4x divided by 2x will give us plus 2. So this is what we get by factorizing the first pair, what I wrote in green. Then we come to the second pair, which is minus 7x minus 14. The common factor is between minus 7x and minus 14 is minus 7. Then we open a bracket. Minus 7x divided by minus 7, you have x. So you have x. Also, minus 14 divided by minus 7 will give us plus 2. And if you remember, once a minus is opening or closing a bracket, a sign normally changes. Like all these signs will change. Minus 4 became plus. Minus 7 here became a plus 2 because the minus that's opening the bracket. So we have factorized it pair by pair, the first pair and the second pair. All we need to do is to continue with the method we normally use. So pick the common factors inside the bracket. Once you have x plus 2 and x plus 2 are common here, they are the same. The first two terms, which of course is the first pair, the factor in bracket is x plus 2. The second two terms, which is the second pair, the factor in bracket is x plus 2 and it's common. So we write it out, x plus 2. That's what we have here. X plus 2. And in a bracket. And then the individual after we've written the common brackets, x plus 2 and x plus 2, which of course just one x plus 2. We've written the common bracket. Then we pick the factors that we wrote outside the bracket, starting with the first one, 2x, and then the second one, minus 7, also inside the bracket. That's basically what we do inside the bracket. So that's the answer. Okay, let's look at this other example. We have f 2x squared plus 7x plus 5. Remember, the first step is multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. So we'll first of all do 2 times 5, and that will give us 2 times 5 is plus 10. That gives us plus 10. Okay, so we're going to look for the common factors, or the factors of 10 first of all. We start with the factors of 10. The factors of 10, I can write them out. Factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10 itself. So 2 factors of 10 such that, remember, it is plus 10. The sign is important. When you multiply 2 by plus 5. We got plus 10. So the product of the two factors must be plus 10. The sum must be plus 7. Those two factors of 10 such that one times the other gives us plus 10. 1 plus the other gives us plus 7. Product plus 10, sum plus 7. And it looks like the two factors will be 2 and 5. And so it will just be plus 2 and plus 5. It's plus 2 and plus 5 that will do the work. Plus 2 and plus 5. So remember, we replace this middle term with these two factors we have found. So plus 2 and plus 5, we replace this middle term. So instead of plus 7x in the middle, we are going to have plus 2x and plus 5x, which are these two factors we found. Plus 2x and plus 5x. Remember to write the letters after you've written the factors, those factors that satisfy the condition. So everything will now be 2x squared, which is 2x squared, plus 2x plus 5x in place of plus 7x, then plus 5 as we have it here. So 2x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 5. So we now have it, we can factorize pair by pair. The first two, if you factorize it, you can bring out 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x, you have x. 2x squared divided by 2x squared divided by 2x, you have x. Then 2x divided by 2x, you have 1. So the first pair, this is what we get when we factorize it. The second pair, that's plus 5x plus 5. What is common is plus 5. Plus 5x divided by plus 5 will give us x. Plus 5 divided by plus 5 will give us 1. So this is what we get when we factorize the second pair. The first pair gives us this in green. The second pair gives us this in blue. And then we look at them. If what we have in bracket are the same, for the green one, what is in bracket is x plus 1. For the red one, what is in bracket is x plus 1. So they are the same. You pick it, you write it out. So x plus 1. You just open your bracket and write x plus 1. So we have x plus 1 in the first bracket. You open another bracket and pick out the constants. Or no, not the constant, you pick out the factors outside the bracket. That's plus 2x, you write it out, and then plus 5, you write it out. So this will be the answers. So let's look at this example. 3x squared plus 4x minus 4 was the first step. Multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. This is the coefficient of x squared, 3, by the constant, 4. That's minus 4. So the first thing we do is we do 3 times minus 4, which will give us minus 12. So we're going to find the factors of 12. Factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12 itself. 2 factors of 12 such that 1 times the other must give us minus 12, and 1 plus the other must give us the middle number, which is middle term, which is plus 4, the coefficient of the middle term. What are those 2 factors? It looks like it is 2 and 6 that will do the work. So the what sign are we going to allocate to each of the 2 factors? Since the middle term has a plus, the bigger number should have a plus. So we said it will be 2 and 6. So it will be, the middle term has a plus, so it means the bigger one will have a plus, the smaller one will have the minus. So we have minus 2 and plus 6. If you like, you can write the plus here. Because these are the 2, minus 2 times plus 6 will give us minus 12. And minus 2 plus 6 will give us plus 4. So we're going to replace this middle term with these 2 factors. So eventually we're going to have 3x squared minus 2x plus 6x, then minus 4. The only thing we are replacing is the middle term. Every other thing stays the same. Just the middle term we are replacing. Instead of writing the middle term plus 4x, we replace it with the 2 factors we found and just include x to them. Every other thing stays the same. 3x squared will still be here. Minus 4 will still be here. So we factorize pair by pair. For this first one, I can write it in red. We have 3x squared and minus 2x. What is common is x. X comes out, then we have 3x minus 2. That's the first pair. This first pair, this and this. X comes out, then you'll be having 3x and minus 2. We've done this, explained this before. So we go to this other one. What can divide the 2 will be plus 2. I can use a blue marker for it, or even a black marker. So I have plus 2. Of course, this will be 3x minus 2. When you do that, because plus 6x divided by plus 2 will give you 3x. Minus 4 divided by plus 2 will give you minus 2. Just like in this place, 3x squared divided by x will give you 3x. Minus 2x divided by x will give you minus 2. So once the terms inside the bracket are the same, normally we write it out. So we have 3x minus 2. Then we pick out the ones outside the bracket, starting with the first one, which is x, and the second one, which is plus 2. And this gives us the answer.